Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda-vibhagine Vyomavatyapta-dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha-jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Adruveshu kinchidapi na prarthayante. Kaha brahmanaha. Katham.
Katham
Pratyagatma darshana pratikulatvat. Why do they not pray or ask for anything which is dhruvam? A, because it is sarva pradashetu anityeshu nirdharya, having recognized the ephemeral nature of everything in this jagat. Sarva pradateshu anityeshu nirdharya. And knowing that there is something more, much, much, much more. Kutastam avichalyam amrtatvam viditva. Why would they go for something which is pratyagatma darshana pratikulatvat? That which is detrimental to pratikula darshanam, to pratyagatma darshanam. Because they recognize that as the ultimate objective. Connecting this to the next mantra, Bhashyakara adds one line. Very many times you would find, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhashyakara adds a line or two connecting a particular mantra with the next mantra so that we can see the continuity. So he says, Yad Vijnanat na kinchit
Yad
Yad
Vijnanat
vijnanat na
na
kinchit
Anyat Prarthayante Brahmanaha
Anyat
anyat
Prarthayante
prarthayante brahmanaha
Katham Tad Adhigamaha Ityuchyate.
Katham tat
katham tat
adhigamaha
adhigamaha
ityuchyate.
ityuchyate
Yad Vijnanat na kinchit anyat prarthayante. Taking from the previous mantra, these people, we will see who, do not seek anything else. If they get some relative apekshika sukha, they will take it. Not that they don't take it, but they're not touched by it. but they don't go seeking it. They don't go after it. There's no trishna for it. Yat Vijnanat, knowing which, with the knowledge of which, knowledge of what? That there is something significantly bigger, infinitely bigger, that I can understand. Knowing that, Yat Vijnanat, Kinchid Anyat Na Prarthayante. They don't seek anything else. Who don't seek? Brahmanaha. Who is the Brahmana? Probably a good definition for Brahmana is Brahmanistha. One who is focused only on gaining Brahman, gaining knowledge of Brahman. We define Brahmana in many different ways. The worst of which is by birth. There is some element of truth in that. There are gene theory which says that if the parents have a certain gene, certain skill sets, the children are likely to gain some of that. It doesn't always happen. We have enough examples in this world of parental genes being very different and the offspring showing completely different tendencies. We've seen this. But that's a general understanding that there is an influence of the parent. Doesn't always like it doesn't happen always. Not only that, we've also seen, scientists established that when there is a hybrid, that means the two parents being of completely different backgrounds. The first generation hybrid tends to excel in both their qualities. But after that, there is a push only. Nothing, after that, no child has any skills at all. They establish this in terms of agriculture, but it's true of any hybrid. First generation hybrid is extremely good, very sharp, very bright. But after that, it deteriorates very rapidly. That's why hybrid is not a very great method of going about getting things. So one method is by birth. I was born to Brahmana parents and therefore I am a Brahmana. Or one can, there is this, I mentioned this Upanishad called Vajrasuchi Upanishad. Very interesting, small Upanishad. I don't know how these are categorized to Upanishad because there's nothing else other than this. This just has one aspect it covers. It is that a person does not become Brahmana by birth. A person, is the Jiva the Brahmana? Is Jiva the one that determines Brahmanatvam? There's no. Is Sharira the one that determines Brahmanatvam? No. Is Karma that determines Brahmanatvam? Again, it says no. That's not the way to define Brahmana. Although we have definitions which says Karma is Karma Brahmana. Is Guna what determines Brahmana? It says no. That is also not Brahmana. And it rejects Jnanam. It also says Jnanam does not determine Brahmana. Just because a person has Jnanam does not make him a Brahmana. Many people of different backgrounds and varieties have gained Jnanam. That is also not true. So what is the Brahmana? According to this Upanishad, Brahmana is one who has Brahma Jnanam. Therefore, he is a Brahmavit. But perhaps one can be a little bit more charitable and say one who is a Brahmanistha, one who has understood that this Brahman is a thing to be understood for the ultimate gain to be obtained. So that is the Brahmana. If that is the Brahmana, that Brahmana will not ask for anything other than, because his focus is very clear. Whether he wears ochre or not, his focus is very clear. Therefore, he is a mumukshu, knowing that knowledge of Brahman is what is going to free me totally from all anartha vishaya. That Brahmana will not seek anything else, will not actively go looking after, chasing after things which are anitya, things which are hetu for all the anartha vishaya. He would only focus entirely. By definition, he focuses only on Brahman, Brahmajnanam. So that Brahmana, anyat kinchit na prarthayante. So Brahmanaha doesn't seek, doesn't go after anything else. How then go to know this? Katham tat adhigamaha. How to go about this? How to know this? What do we do to gain this knowledge? So connecting that, because the next mantra, a beautiful mantra, essence of all that Vedanta tells us, that mantra tells you what this Atma is, what this Brahman is. And there's some nice discussions in this in the Bashyam also. Yena rupa rasangandam
Yena rupam rasam gandham
shabdan sparshan cha maithunan
shabdan sparshan cha maitunan
yete naiva vijanati
etenaiva
Naiva
vijanati
vijanati
kimatra parishishyate
kimatta
pratishyate
parihishyate
yetad vaitat.
etat
etat
vaitat.
vaitat.
You will find this phrase occurring many times. Every time there is a explanation of Atma Brahman, this is that. Yetad vaitat. This indeed is that. That what? That amrtatvam that you are seeking. What is it that? So each of these mantras will talk about what that amrtatvam is, what is that Brahman. In this mantra it says, Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdhan sparshan cha maitunan. Yete naiva vijanati. All these senses, sense objects you recognize, the senses you have, how do you know what the eyes can show? Color. How do you know what the ears can hear? Sound. How do you distinguish between a pleasant sound and unpleasant sound? How do you know smell? What makes that possible? Similarly, touch, taste. How do you know them? If you give it a little thought, I know because I have eyes. Can't I see? I can make out colors. But how does the eye say, oh, I have scientific explanation for it. There is a lens and there is an image and the image, let the image be there. How do you know? No, I have Those are processed by my buddhi. How does the buddhi process them? No, buddhi has memory. It takes out from the memory. How does the buddhi work? You give it a little thought, you can recognize that there has to be a what is often called a consciousness principle. Something which is sentient. None of these are sentient. Not the eye, not the mind, not the buddhi. None of it is sentient. No part of the body, sharira, is sentient. So there has to be a sentiency principle, a consciousness principle, which makes these things operate the way they operate and gain that knowledge. Who is that knower? How do I know color or sound or taste or touch? Who is the knower? None of the body's elements can be the knower because they're all jada. And we know that Atma, Brahman, the consciousness principle, does not have any action. Knowing is an action. It's a karma. Then who is the knower? Who is the knower? How do you know color? How do you know taste? How do you know sound? Something must be energizing them. Something must be there. Some principle must be there. Some which must make it happen. By itself, Atma cannot know. By itself, Deha cannot know. No part of the Deha can know. But there is what is called Tadatmyam. When the eyes in the presence of Atma, eyes can know using the buddhi. If that presence is not there, eyes will not see. Eyes by themselves have no ability to see or know. A dead body is a jada. It still has eyes. Cannot see. Cannot gain any knowledge of color. Something has happened. That principle which makes chakshu a chakshu, chakshus chakshu, mano manaha, that principle is but then how do I know this? You cannot separate that principle from the eyes. You cannot separate. See, there are three levels. There is this Atma which is formless, intangible, all-pervading, all those things, birds that we've heard about them. Then there is Sukshma Sharira. And that Tadatmyam is impossible to separate. The physical body, at least when the death occurs, physical body is separated. You can see the physical body lying there. Can do nothing. But with the Sukshma Sharira, this is completely in there. There's nothing, you cannot separate them. So, therefore, there is a separate principle. Only by inference you can see that there has to be something. And that something has to be the enervating force. That is the I. Therefore, ena rupam rasam gandham shabdan sparshanscha maithunan. Eyesight, I know form and color. Therefore, by this force using the eye, without the eye it cannot happen. Without the force, I cannot see. Similarly, taste, smell, touch, sound, everything. All of them have to be in the presence of. I can't find a better word than that because unfortunately that's the only word you can use. In the presence of. That presence you cannot separate. I've got tadatmyam. So I have to separate it only through understanding. That there is a principle called consciousness principle, chaitanyam, which energizes all of these things, which makes seeing possible, hearing possible, touch possible, taste possible, smell possible, all of them possible. And all the sukha dukkha I get is possible. Every contact sukha, contact with every sense and the sense object, that is the contact, that is the maithuna. That contact born pain or pleasure, both. As far as looking at it from the Atma perspective, pain and pleasure are exactly the same. It's only from our perspective here, we say pain is one end, pleasure is one end, but they are the same. Both of them have to happen only because Atma is there. That by which you feel pain, that by which you feel pleasure, that by which you can see, that by which you can hear, etc., that principle, that chaitanyam, etad vaitat. This is what we're talking about. Yena rupam rasam gandham shabdhan sparshan maithunan. All contact born sukha, all external. Sukha includes dukkha. Dukkha. Sight includes pleasant sights and unpleasant sights. Sounds includes beautiful music and cacophony. Smells include smells which are abhorrent and smells which are very beautiful. There's no difference. Same with all of them. All of them you know, etena eva vijanati. Everything in this jagat is known by which? By whose presence all of these operate and produce pleasant and unpleasant experiences. Sights and sounds and all of them. Same experience, sometimes is pleasant, sometimes unpleasant. As far as we are concerned, they are the same. All arise in the presence of the Sakshi Atma. Etenaiva vijanati. Kimatra parishishyate. Without exception, everything falls under the same category. All that we see, hear, touch, smell, taste in the Jagat is made possible by the presence of which principle, which Chaitanyam, which Sakshi, which is so thoroughly combined with our Sukshma Sharira that there is no possibility of physically separating them. Only through cognition do I understand that there has to be something. There has to be a Chaitanyam. Other than that Chaitanyam, consciousness principle, Nothing else is sentient. Kimatra parishishyate. That is what you're looking for. That is what the Brahmana is looking for. That he knows is kutastham, avichalyam, amrtatvam, viditva, doesn't seek anything else. Etad vaitat, this is what you're looking for. This is that. Indeed, this is that. Etad vaitat. That by which one knows color, taste, smell, form, all of them. Therefore, nothing remains which can be known in the absence of Atma. Atma by itself also cannot know anything. When death occurs, Sharira is still there. Atma is still there. But the Sharira doesn't know anything. It is this Tadatmyam that gives you the knowledge. So this you want to know, what is it that Vastu which I'm seeking, for which sake I don't seek anything else. I being a Dhira Purusha. Etad vaitat. That by which you see, taste, smell, everything in this Jagat without exception. Bhashyakara takes it up very beautifully in the discussion here, including an objection. There is nothing that the Chaitanyam cannot reveal. There is nothing that is revealed without the Chaitanyam. If the Chaitanyam eva na prakashate, nothing. Yena vijnana svabhavena
येन
विज्ञानस्वभावेन
विज्ञानस्वभावेन
atmana rupam rasam gandham
आत्मना
आत्मना
रूपं
रूपं
रसं
रसं
गन्धं
गन्धं
sabdan sparshanscha maithunan
शब्दान्
शब्दान्
स्पर्शान् च
स्पर्शांश्च
मैथुनान्
मैथुनान्
maithuna nimittan sukha pratyayan
मैथुननिमित्तान्
मैथुननिमित्तान्
सुखप्रत्ययान्
सुखप्रत्ययान्
vijanati
विजानाति
विजानाति
vispashtam janati
विस्पष्टं
विस्पष्टं
जानाति
जानाति
sarvo lokah
सर्वो
सर्वो
लोकः
लोकः
yena vijnana svabhavena. That is the only one that has the ability to allow the eyes to see, ears to hear, etc. Vijnana svabhavena, which is the absolute I, the Atma, Atmana, all Tritiya. Vijnana svabhavena Atmana, that Atma which Svabhava, Swarupa is Vijnanam, by which Rupam, Rasam, Gandham, Shabdan, Sparshan, Cha Maithunan, Vijanati. Who Vijanati? Sarvo Lokaha. The entire, everyone, every jiva knows these, because of which, by whose presence, yena vijnana svabhavena atmana, that Atma by which you know all that the senses can reveal, from which you determine from a Vyavaharika perspective that this is nice, this is not nice. this I like, this I don't like. You determine all that. But that is revealed only by that one Atma. And Rupa, Rasam, Gandham, Shabdan, Sparshancha, Maitunan, Bhashagara expands Maitunan, Maituna Nimittan, Sukha Pratyayan. All the pleasures coming from contact-based pressures. Contact doesn't necessarily mean physical contact, includes physical contact. Contact of the sense with the sense objects. And here when he says nimittan sukha pratyayan, that sukha includes dukkha. It is not only the sense of pleasure that you're talking about, the whole range is talked about. Maituna nimitta. Maituna is togetherness. So the sense object togetherness. Maituna is also interpreted as conjugal pleasures. That's only one part of it. Maituna nimittan sukha pratyayan. All the experiences which are pleasurable in different degrees. Sometimes very pleasurable, sometimes not so pleasurable. Sometimes it's so bad that you want to run away from it. All the same. By which vijanati, by which one knows. What is vijanati? Vispashtam janati. You know clearly. And you know what? Sometimes you know it is pleasurable. Sometimes you know it is not pleasurable. Some things are pleasurable. Some things are not pleasurable. The same thing at one time is pleasurable, another time is not pleasurable. Vispashtam vijanati. That by which all this is known, that principle, that universal consciousness principle is what we are looking for. And that is separate from the body, mind, sense complex. Although you cannot physically separate it, we know that it is not the same. Like I said earlier, one might try and argue saying, no, science tells us how sight is made. But you can keep questioning till you come to that principle which you cannot find answer to, for which there is no way of knowing using the senses, which cannot be known using the senses. Indriya atita vastu. Therefore, you have to have another method of knowing what is that principle, what is Chaitanyam. Therefore, you need a pramana. That pramana you determine is Veda pramana, Shabda pramana. Because there is no way I can either separate it from the Sharira, nor can I, if I separate it, and if my senses can sense it, it becomes another object. But that which cannot be objectified, that which is not available to the senses, I therefore infer that such a principle is there, and then I go to Shastra for understanding it. That I am, I know. So somebody can argue, other than the so-called rationalists, there can be another argument which the Purva Pakshi takes up. Akshepaha, an objection. Can you put it on the screen, please? Nanu
Nanu
naivam na evam prasiddha lokasya
Nevam
एवं
Evam
प्रसिद्धलोकस्य
Prasiddhalokasya
atmana dehadi vilakshane
आत्मना
Atmana
देहादिविलक्षणेन
Dehavilakshanena
aham vijanami iti
अहं
Aham
विजानामि
Vijanami Iti
dehadi sangatah aham
Dehadi
देहादिसङ्घातः
Aham
janami iti tu
विजानामि
Vijanami
तु
Tu
sarvo lokah avagacchati.
सर्वो लोकः
Sarvolokaha
अवगच्छति.
Avagacchati.
There is an objection to this saying. If you tell me that there is another principle which you cannot see, which you cannot touch, which you cannot sense in any way, and which you cannot separate out, if you separate out, then you'll be able to sense using the senses. You cannot separate out. How do you say? Na evam. No, what you say doesn't sound right. Because the whole Jagat, everybody knows that I am. That I am, and when I get up and go, the Sharira also goes. That Sharira is I. That whole Jagat knows. Everybody knows. Evam prasiddhi lokasya atmana dehadi vilakshanena aham vijanami iti. There is the Indriya, Manas, etc. The Sukshma Sharira is there. And that Sukshma Sharira, along with the Sthula Sharira, makes me understand I am the self. I am this body, mind, sense complex. That is what tells me, makes me know. Why? Dehadi sanghataha aham. I am that there. Dehadi sanghataha. The assembly of Deha Adi. Aham bijanami. This everybody knows. It is sarvo lokaha avagacchati. Everybody knows I see. Not only do I see, I see you, you see me. Therefore, for you to say that there is something else other than this is not correct. By which I see everything, I touch, I know everything. It is not correct. Na evam, because prasiddhi lokasya atmana dehadi vilakshanena aham vijanami iti is not correct. Iti na. Evam na. That there is something other than the body mind sense complex by which you can see is not right. Why is that? What is that you're talking about? I can't see it. No, you can't see it, therefore it is there. The whole world knows that dehadi sanghata is aham. And it is by this aham that aham sarvam vijanami. This is known to everybody. So for you to suddenly come and tell me that there's another principle other than the body mind sense complex, dehadi vilakshanena, by that only I see, I touch everything, is not correct. If that was true, why do you need any pramana? If it was true that everybody knows that dehadi sanghataha is what known, because I know I exist, just because everybody says that same thing, it doesn't make it correct. And because it is not correct, you have to have another Shastra. Otherwise, you don't need Shastra. It is the same argument that we have for Dvaitam. Dvaitam is the only thing. Dvaitam is the end. Everybody knows it. Even an uneducated person knows this. Oh, that is why you have to have Shastra. That is why you have to have, if it is what is obvious, what everybody thinks he knows is the correct thing, then you don't need anything else. But we know that in the Jagat, it is not always true. What 99% of people think is true may not be true. Why? Because we are all born with avidya. Every single person is born with avidya. Therefore, it is common for everybody to make the same mistake. Therefore, you need another pramana to examine that, to make you think about it, do vichara, and arrive at the fact that that cannot be correct. Avidya is universal. But his argument is very clear. Everybody says this, therefore it is got to be correct. Therefore, I am the body, mind, sense complex. I don't need anything else to make my body, mind, sense complex be the knower, the seer, etc. How do you say that there is something else? Can you show me that? No, I can't show you. It's not available for seeing. It's not available for any senses. So I have to show you in some other way that what you're saying is wrong. If what you're saying was correct, we don't need Shastra. Why do we need Shastra? So Shankaracharya takes it up. And gives us samadhanam. The Siddhantin's view to this objection, to the akshepa, saying, what you're saying is not correct. I can't show you Atma, because Atma is not available for seeing. I can't separate it from this body-mind sense complex. So I can't take it out and say, here, see this. Can't do that. If we could, that will become one more object in the Jagat. So you can't do it. Then how do I show that you're making a mistake? Bhashyakara says, Natu evam
Natu
ततो
evam
एवं
dehadi sanghatasyapi na yuktam
आदिसं
vigyatritvam. I'm combining the rewriting that a little bit. Dehadi sanghatasyapi na yuktam vigyatritvam. I've taken a word from the phrase from later and fitted it in here. The sentence of Dehadi Sanghatasyapi Shabdadi Swarupatva Avisheshad Vigneyatva Avisheshad Cha Na Yuktam Vignatritvam. But if we read it, rephrase it, Dehadi Sanghatasyapi Na Yuktam Vignatritvam. The ability to know you cannot assign to Dehadi Sangha. This is the sentence. What you're saying is incorrect. For Dehadi, that whole Samuha, you cannot give it Vignatritvam. That cannot have the nature of being the knower, of the revealer. Why? Because Shabdadi
Shabdadi
Swarupatva
शब्दादि
Shabdadi Swarupatva
Avisheshad
अविशेषात्
Avishesha
विशेषात्
Vigneyatva Avisheshat Cha.
विज्ञेयत्वे
Avisheshat Cha.
Cannot give this body mind sense complex a sense of I. Why? Because Shabdadi Swarupatva. Now, body mind sense complex has these attributes. They are made of the same Panchabhutas of which, let us say, a stone is made. The things which we know to be insentient are made of exactly the same thing that this Dehadi Sanghata is made of. Therefore, there is no separation, there is no difference between the body mind sense complex, which has certain attributes and characteristics which are the same thing as every other thing in this Jagat. They are available for sense perception. It is available for your own sense perception. It's available for other people's sense perception. I see you. If you see, then it becomes an object. And if it's an object, you cannot assign I-ness to it. It cannot be I. I sense you, I taste, I smell. I can see myself. I can see my hand. I may not be able to see my back, but I can see myself. I can hear my stomach grumbling. Available for all my senses. And all the senses of everybody else present near you. Therefore, Shabdadi Swarupatva Avisheshat. What's the difference between something else which is available for a bell ringing? Same Shabda you also make. Not the same Shabda, you don't ring like a bell, but far worse. But you make the same thing, the same object. Shabdadi, all the senses. When they say, I know something, I can see something, I can hear something, that becomes an object. Then you ask a question, who sees? Who knows? Then there's no difference between object and object. They're all objects. Then your Dehadi Sangha also becomes an object. If it is an object, it cannot be the subject. Shabda is Swarupatva Avisheshat. Similarly, Vijnayatva Avisheshat. I know myself. I know my head has no hair. I know. No, Swamiji, I can't see myself. Oh, the others can see you, no? If you know yourself, if you can see yourself, touch yourself, who senses the touching? Who is the one who sees? It has to be different from what is seen. So, Shabdhadi Swarupatva Avisheshat, Vijnayatva Avisheshat. Therefore, you cannot impute an I sense to Dehadi. Because it's available for perception, available for senses. So while you argue that everybody knows the body-mind sense complex to be I, there is a mistake. It cannot be I. Because Shabdadi Swarupatva Avisheshat. Vijnayatva Avisheshat. If you say no, that is also not true. What you're saying is not correct. Dehadi, etc. can become sentient. Then Shankaracharya forwards another argument. Yadihi
यदि ही
यदि हि
यदि हि
Dehadi Sanghatah
देहादि
संघातः
संघातः
Rupadhyatmakah San
रूपाध्यात्मकः
रूपात्मकः
सन्
सन्
संरूपात्
Rupadin
रूपादि
रूपादि
Vijaniyat
विजानीयात्
विजानीयात्
Tarhi
तर्हि
तर्हि
Bahya api
बाह्या
बाह्या
अपि
अपि
Rupadayoho Anyonyam Swayam Rupam
रूपादयोः
रूपादयोः
स्वयं
अन्यं
स्वयं
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 स्वं
रूपं
स्वं
च
रूपं
Vijaniyuhu.
च
च
विजानीयुः
विजानीयुः
This is like the Dehadi Sangata has these character Rupadhyatmakaha. Like anything else in this world, a tree, a stone. And if you argue that no, this has this ability to see, ability to know, because everybody knows it to be true, and you don't accept that mistake, then look at what the consequences. Yadihi, if you assume this, then tarhi, what will happen? Yadi tarhi. If you accept yadihi, dehadi sangataha rupadhyatmakaha san, being rupadhyatmakaha, rupadin vijaniyat, if you say that they will know rupa, etc., rupa, rasa, gandha, etc., then everything external, bahya api, Rupadayoho anyonyam swam rupam cha vijaneyahu. That means everything the stone should know, the book reading should know itself. And then the book will have its own will. Book will close itself. Hey, I want to read. If you close it, how will I read? I don't want to be read. Because it recognizes swam rupam cha vijaneyahu. I recognize my rupa. I also don't want to be read. I want to go and sit in the library. So everything else will know itself. Not only know itself. Anyonyam swam rupam. Also know the others. The notebook will argue with the pen. Why are you scratching like this? You are useless. See, you created a blot on my paper. Huh? And they will argue. That is not true. I don't like you. If somebody has to write on me, it has to be very expensive pen. Mont Blanc. Only then I will allow you to write. Otherwise, I won't allow you to write. Hey, does that make any sense? Yadi hi dehadi sangatah rupadhyatmakah san rupadinan vijaniyat, being rupadhyatmakah, if they understand rupadi, then everything external will also have the same, because they're also objects. You're also talking about objects. The same being rupadi, anyonyam samsam rupancha vijaniyu. They also must know themselves. And they must know others. Therefore, for you to argue that the Sharira, Dehadi Sangha knows itself. I remember many years ago, I used to argue with myself. Before I began to understand a little bit of this, I realized the body cannot be I. Independently, the mind also cannot be I. Thoughts cannot be I. Then I said, no, then there must be a, together they become I. Like many things, you find individually, they have certain properties. But when combined, they have a completely different property. So like that, maybe it is this combination of body, mind, senses, everything which makes I. I tried arguing myself with that. Arguing with myself, saying, what is I? It's like hydrogen is a gas, oxygen is a gas, but together they have a completely different property. Two molecules of hydrogen, one of oxygen, you get a completely different thing. Not even gas. Maybe something like that happening. But you can see that is also not true. Dehadi Sanghata, all elements are insentient. All elements are such that they being subject to available for senses are objects. Thoughts can be known, senses can be known, not only known, they keep changing all the time. My thoughts change with time. In fact, at any given point of time, my thoughts are constantly changing. And over time, they change dramatically. Everybody's thoughts are like that. Senses are like that. Physical body, of course, is like that. That is easier to understand. But even the Sanghata cannot be I. So he says, if you assume that they have the sense of I and their ability to know themselves and therefore others, then you have a situation where you cannot work with anything. Because everything has the same sentiency and they will all argue with you. Your computer will run away from you. You are misusing me. I don't like it. You'll be chasing the computer. We have enough things to chase. We don't need to chase insentient things also. Therefore, it is not possible. Therefore, he says, Nat chetat nacha etat asti.
Nacha
Nacha
etat
etat
asti.
asti.
We know that in the world that is not true. I take a pencil and write, pencil doesn't react. Pencil doesn't say, you're writing too hard, you're pressing too hard on the paper. The paper protests. These things don't happen because they're insentient. If you say that body, mind, sense complex is sentiency, all of them will also have sentiency. Therefore, what you're arguing that body, mind, sense complex has a sense of I, that therefore knows everything, is incorrect. That objection is addressed. Tasmad
Tasmad
dehadi lakshanansh
dehadi
Dehadi
lakshana
lakshanascha
rupadin etena eva
rupadin eva
रूपादिव्यतिरिक्तेनैव
dehadi vratriktena eva
dehadi
देहादिव्यतिरिक्तेनैव
vyatirikteena eva
vijnana svabhavena
vijnana
विज्ञानस्वभावेन
atmana vijanati lokah.
atmana
आत्मना
vijanati
विजानाति
विजानाति
lokah.
लोकः
लोकः
Therefore, although you cannot separate Atma from the Dehadi, physically you cannot separate them. Etena eva Dehadi Vyatiriktena eva, although they are not, it is different from the Dehadi Sanghata, you cannot separate them, but they have Vijnana Swabhavam. that Vijnana Swabhavam Atma, by that Atma, Atmana Vijanati Lokaha. Only by that do you understand all things in the Jagat. So his arguments are very clear. Tasmat, therefore, Dehadi Lakshanansha Rupadin etena eva Dehadi Vyatiriktena eva Vijnana Swabhavena Atmana Vijanati Lokaha. Therefore, it has to be that if you have to know something, that tadatmyam becomes important. Neither the body mind sense complex nor the Atma by itself can be the knower. That leaves us in a very intriguing situation. Then what is that knower? We will examine that in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om
Namaste, Swamiji. Namaste, Swamiji.
Harihi Om